In this video, I'm going to explain how you can use the subjunctive mood in French. This video is aimed at years 10 and 11. So the subjunctive mood is something which does exist in English, but it's not used that often, and when we do use it, we don't often notice that we are using it. However, it's used far more often and is far more visible in French and in other languages like Spanish. Basically, you use the subjunctive in French when you are talking about something that falls into one of these categories, and a way of remembering it is the word weirdos. So if you're expressing a wish, an emotion, an impersonal phrase, a recommendation, a doubt, an order, or a speculation, then that would mean you have to use a subjunctive in French. So basically it's all to do with if you're not 100% certain on something, or if you're expressing something that's purely an opinion. So facts aren't included in the subjunctive, but it's anything which is a little bit doubtful, because things like your wishes and emotions are quite hard to prove. So if there's anything a little bit hazy, then that is when you would use the subjunctive in French. So let's go through a few examples. So for example, if you're describing a wish, such as je veux que tu sois content, which means I want you to be happy. The verb to be is in red on the screen, and that is the subjunctive form of you be, which normally would be to a. But because we're saying I want you to be happy, that be becomes sois. Here's an example for emotions. Je suis content que tu sois ici. I am happy that you are here. Once again, the you are, which would normally be to a, becomes tu sois, because I'm expressing my own personal emotion. I am happy that you are here. Basically, there's no way of you knowing for certain if I'm genuinely happy that you are here. So it has to be in the subjunctive form. Some phrases don't really express your own wishes or desires, but are a little bit more vague, such as it is important that. So here we have il est important que tu sois ici. It is important that you are here. It's not really me saying I think it's important, but I'm just saying generally overall it is important that you are here. So once again, we have the subjunctive in red. You also use the subjunctive to talk about recommendations. For example, il vaut mieux que tu sois ici, which would translate as it would be best that you are here. Once again, because I'm saying il vaut mieux que, it would be best that, the you are becomes tu sois. Doubts tend to be the most clear-cut use of the subjunctive, because we say that it's used for when you're a little bit doubtful about situations, so doubts fall right into that. For example, je doute que tu puisses venir. I doubt that you can come. Here, the red, that is the verb can, which would normally be tu peux, but in the subjunctive it becomes puisse. Je doute que tu puisses venir. I doubt that you can come. Orders are another very, very common use of the subjunctive. For example, il faut que tu viennes. It is necessary that you come. Finally, we use subjunctive when we are speculating about situations. For example, j'imagine que tu veuilles venir. I imagine that you want to come. I've got no real way of knowing for certain that you want to come, but I'm simply imagining it. So because it's not 100% fact, the verb in red has to be in the subjunctive. Normally it would be tu veux venir, you want to come. But in the subjunctive it becomes j'imagine que tu veuilles venir. All of that at first might seem a little bit daunting, but it does get easier with time. One big feature with the subjunctive is that it's always, well, most of the time it's easily spotted because you use a que. So in all of those example sentences there was a que. So sometimes you can try and avoid having to use the subjunctive by ignoring the que. So for example, il faut venir. It is necessary to come. If I put the que in, il faut que, then I have to use the subjunctive. Il faut que tu viennes. So if you use a que, then it quite often indicates subjunctive. Right, let's look at how you form the subjunctive tense then. So your starting point is the present tense, and it's the present tense ils or elles form of the verb. You then chop off the ent and add the endings you can see on the screen. So I for je, es for tu, I for he and she. For nous it's an ion, for vous it's an ie, and for an ils and an elles you basically just re-add the ent back on. Here are some examples of verbs in French in the subjunctive. So we've got regarder and finir. The purple dots indicate where the verb actually looks identical to how it normally would in the present tense. So the normal present tense version and the subjunctive version look absolutely identical. For example, the je regarde, tu regardes, il regarde, and the il, elle finissent. The light blue dots show you which verbs do look rather different in the subjunctive. For example, nous regardions. Normally that would just be nous regardons with an ONS, but here it has an IONS. So the ones in blue are the ones which do look different. So you may have already come across subjunctive tense verbs, subjunctive mood verbs, but they've been like the purple ones and almost disguised, so you've not noticed. Whereas others you might read and think they do look a little bit odd or unusual or not quite what you're used to. So that would normally be your subjunctive verbs. As with every tense and mood in French, there are some irregular verbs that you need to learn, and the key ones are on the screen. Finally, here are some examples of the subjunctive in use. So we have a cartoon on the screen, and he's saying devenir adulte est sans doute la plus grosse bêtise que l'on puisse faire, which would translate roughly as becoming an adult is without a doubt the biggest mistake that one can do. So that puisse is underlined in red. That is the subjunctive, because he's very much giving his own opinion here and saying it's the biggest mistake that one can do, whereas it's really just his opinion, so puisse rather than peut. And finally, this must be the most famous use of subjunctive of all time in French, que la force soit avec toi, which would translate as may the force be with you. So we've got the que, and he's indicating a wish, a desire, a hope that the force be with them. So rather than using the normal present tense, we've had to use here soit. Que la force soit avec toi. May the force be with you. If you're just starting out with the subjunctive, the important thing is to recognise subjunctive tense verbs when you see them and to know what they're sort of masquerading as. So if you ever come across a soit, then that basically comes from the verb être, so it's just am, like je suis. If you come across an I, that one's slightly trickier because that comes from the verb aller, to go. So for example, you're probably used to je vais, I go. Face comes from the verb faire, meaning to do. So you're most likely used to je fais. And the bottom one, I, comes from the verb avoir. So you'd more normally see it just as a j'ai. So if you're just starting out, just try and get comfortable with at least recognising the verbs and understanding what they mean, and you can then gradually build up to trying to use them for yourself and then trying to conjugate them for yourself.